As a career coach that helps software engineers land and pass interviews in 2025, here's how I construct the essentials and the electives of the job search process in order to optimize results. First essential is to identify your goals. Are you trying to land a job as quickly as possible, or are you trying to maximize compensation? It will change your job search strategy. If you're not sure, or if you're unemployed, I recommend getting a foothold by going for a quick employment and continuing to interview for like a FANG role or whatever as a second step, instead of trying to increase your barrier to entry to a FANG job while you're unemployed. The opportunity cost is way too high. So from that basic, you can immediately see one superpower for some engineers is to accept a pay cut relative to their prior role. If you get laid off, consider, instead of taking unemployment, which is like a pittance, consider taking a 10, 20% cut in your base salary for a job that might last 6 months while you prep to go to the big leagues. Because it can take a lot of time to really get a good chance of an offer at. Now that you have your goals laid out, you should try the snowball method by starting to apply at non-target companies as a way to practice and set an insurance policy so that you can progress to higher preferred companies. And by the time you get to those higher preferred companies, you might already have an offer in hand, your stress is reduced, and your practice is better. I want to intentionally target all 3 round types: coding, behavioral, and system design. And yes, in 2025, even though like cheating tools have gone viral on social media, intentional practice on LeetCode is still recommended. And Latterly has the Latterly LeetCode Kata on the blog. You can check it out, available for free, which gives a structured approach, very beginner friendly, to getting into LeetCode. Even if you've never done it before, it's beginner friendly. The key thing about applying is that you need to social network. Applying without social networking is an anti-pattern. If you apply to a job post and you conduct no social networking, according to data, again, available on the Latterly blog, this is the blog article on cover letter tailoring, and you can see an original contribution of data in that article. If you apply to a job post, like on LinkedIn or Indeed or any of the recommended job boards without social networking, you have about a 1% chance of getting an interview. If you social network, it 10x's. If your social network even fails, if you fail to get a referral, it still gets a 10x, 10% chance. If you succeed in the referral, it goes way up, like 33x higher. Social networking is essential. An elective here is to also create content as you go. I think a few posts on LinkedIn per week is required. Doing more than that, what I do is I post every day to multiple channels. That's elective. Even though it's elective, it's still significantly value added. So that in 2024, when I was laid off and I was promoted by layoff so that I'm now staff, 50% of my first round interviews were inbound because I have a public professional brand. You want to make sure, essential, that you have a minimum of 500 connections on LinkedIn, and elective is to get up into the thousands. And you can continue to see gains by doing volume on the social network on your LeetCode practice. Basically, in all walks of the job search, volume, brute force, is an extremely underrated technique. So should you do quality or quantity on the job search? You should do both. You should require some level of quantity with some bar of quality, and then you can scale those both up as your time allows. At the senior plus level, I'm recommending 40 to 50 applications per week. At the junior level, I would double it, and you can adapt that as you start getting interviews. You're gonna allocate more time to interview prep and less time to applying because you have interviews in the pipeline. That's fine. So your first couple weeks, go 40, 50, and then when you start filling up your schedule with interviews, you can just take on an hourly basis, say, well, I'm gonna move like a few hours less from applying over to interview prep, and keep a signal on where are you strong and weak. Do you need to do more hours on coding or more hours on behavioral? And you can swap them around. So time management is really important here. And that's why you should keep a spreadsheet of your job posts and your contact for that job post and where you are in the sales process of the job pipeline. So you should view it as a sales funnel. First, you want to apply and network, seek a referral, get a first round interview, second round, and final loop. So these are stages. And you can figure out, this is the main way you figure out your pain point in the interview process, is where in this funnel are you getting stalled? Are you having trouble getting interviews, or are you having trouble passing them? And then for some people, if you're targeting high comp, when you get to the offer stage, are you having trouble negotiating? For people that are trying to target basically any role as quickly as possible, that's less of a concern. That's it. That's the high level way that I diagnose where in the job search you're having a pain point. And then once we diagnose it, there's different treatment options. So there's specific techniques in behavioral, there's specific techniques with outreach messaging. When you connect with someone on LinkedIn, use the add note feature. I highly recommend LinkedIn Premium. It will more than double on average. It will more than double your performance, or in other words, it will half your job search time. And that will enable you to connect to a lot of people and use the add note feature, so you don't just connect and then wait to message them later. Send the message immediately, and then there's specific techniques around what you can say when you're doing that sort of thing. So after you diagnose, there's lots of remediation techniques. Feel free to drop a comment with a question, and I'll address those on a case-by-case basis. I won't cover them here, but that should give you a sense of how to diagnose the pain point in your job search. You want to have certain basics: optimal LinkedIn profile, resume, and I do recommend a portfolio, unless here's an exemption. If you already have a FANG role, you don't need to worry about the portfolio, basically. So if you're disregarding tier 2 and tier 3 companies, you don't really need a portfolio. But if you are targeting any role, you want to include tier 2, 3 companies, so portfolio helps. If you're trying to maximize compensation, if you're exclusively looking at FANG, it's a lot less important, and you're going to overweight interview prep, basically. Those are some tips. Hope it helps. Follow from, and you can sign up for free at Latterly.io.